Hello there, welcome to this tutorial. This time around we'll be looking at CSS. If you didn't check out my last video on HTML, please check out the description. I will have added it there. We'll now focus on CSS. Now in HTML we're able to lay out the page using different elements. But how do you style this element? Sometimes you want to add colors, sometimes you want to move it left, right, sometimes you want to give it space from the others. That's what we'll be looking at. Now, like I pointed out in my former tutorial, what I'm focusing on is what you really need to start out as a beginner. I'll be telling you everything you need for CSS. As you grow writing code, you meet different problems. As you meet problems, you will seek for help, and then you get to know some of these things better. And that's the best time you should get to know these things. And that's why this particular course or tutorial will be ending with how to seek help. I also did that in the former tutorial. So you check out how you can seek help when you need help or when you run into a particular bug. So that is it. So we'll get down into it and start with the selectors. So let me get this off the way. I already put this. This is coming from my last tutorial. Somewhere around commenting. All right. So from here, I already have this HTML element on the page. Now, how do you select a particular element? You can select a particular element either through tags, through IDs, class, this particular three. All right, let's focus on these three. Now, what are tags? Tags are this name of the element. So if you want to select this particular element, you can use a tag. Now, you can also use IDs, identifiers. So if you want to set an ID for this, you can just do inside of the H1 tag, beginning H1 tag, you can just set an ID and then put the ID you want there. So you could just put heading, something like this. You could also have a class, and then you can use anything, heading class. Just make sure you remember this when you need to reference it. And that's it. That is selectors for you. This are how you can target a particular element. Now, as we continue, you see how these things plays out gradually. So let's get rid of all this, or we can actually leave it. And now let's use the p tag. Now the next thing we are looking at, according to our curriculum here, okay, this is PHP. Let's get rid of this. Okay, great. Right. Now we've already talked about the selectors, the ID, class, tag name. So the next one is how do we add CSS properly? Now, just adding the selectors does not add the class, but we use those selectors to add the class. Now, the first way to add styling is to use what we call inline CSS. So there's inline CSS, there is in-file CSS, and there's the external CSS. So the first one, inline, means we'll be styling that element directly. So inside of the element here, you write style, and then you put in the particular styling you want. So say for example, you want to change the color of this p tag. So you, inside of this quotation mark, you write the style name, that is color, and then followed by a colon, and then you pick a particular color. So I could just pick red, and then always end it with a semicolon. Once you save, you should change this first p tag. Let me make sure I refresh so that it changes. All right, great. So it has changed. I could come down to the second p tag and add style, and inside of here I could just say I want to change the font weight. Font weight is how thick this font should be. So font weight, let me make sure I see what I'm doing. I just put bold and save it, and then you see it thickens. We could also add more than one style. For example, we could put something like font size, and then we say 10 pixels and save it, and notice how it becomes smaller. If I make it 100 pixels and save it, it becomes really big, and man, that's too big. All right, let's make it something reasonable. Okay, let's make 40 pixels. All right, that's better. Either ways, so let's add maybe one more style in here. We could add say text decoration, and then we could say underline, something like that, and save. you know, and that would underline whatsoever is there. So this is inline styling. Now, if you need maybe a list of all the styles you could be adding, I'll be dropping a link in the description, which is a full documentation of these styles. But these are things you pick up generally as you move on, and many of these things are very self-explanatory. It's just like a normal English, so you don't have to memorize it. Just focus on understanding how to apply them. All right. So that is inline styling. How about the in-file styling? So for us to do this, let's get rid of all the inline styling we've done already, or let's let it be for now. Let's just come up here and add the style. So what you need is to go into the head. Inside of the head, you just, anywhere inside of the head, you open and close a style tag like so. So any style you apply here would automatically apply across the whole file. All right. All right. Now let's start with applying a p tag for a p tag. So all you need to do is write the p tag and then open and close braces like this. And then we could say we could just add let's add a particular style. So which style do we add? Let's do font family. So we could do font family and pick any font. So let me do Lucy the Sans and save it. And notice how it changes the font family of all the p tags. It changes all p tags, but notice that other things that are not p tags are not touched. So say for example, the about my home remains Times New Roman. You know, the default is usually Times New Roman. So it's different from what we added here. Lucida Sans is a bit more different. And I added more than one. These are just backups and you can just use one. It doesn't really matter. So let me get rid of all of them and save again. Right? Great. So let's get rid of everything. Sorry. Save it. All right. So we're back to Times New Roman. Now, but notice something. The style we added to just one p tag apply to all of them. Why is that so? So it is so because whatever thing we are putting in here is applying to the whole file. But how about if we want to target a particular p tag and not the two p tag? So let's get rid of this inline styling. All right. Let's get rid of this and let's get rid of this. Now I want to apply, you know, the same styling, but we want to make it different for each one. So if we want to apply a particular styling, so let's just save it and let's come back to normal. If you want to apply a particular style to each p tag, you need to add an ID. So ID, and you can just put first p, something like that, and then an ID here, second p, like so. So instead of using a p tag, all right, we will now focus on using the ID. Reason is, of course, like we said, if you use the p tag, it will apply to everything. We don't want it to apply to everything. So let's target the first p. So for you to target this first p now, you need to use what we call the hashtag and then paste it there. So the first p. And then we can just apply color and put in any color we want. So aqua is fine. Save it. Text changes. And then let's do the same thing for second p. All right, now that we've done that, okay, second p, we could just change the color and say red, like so, save, and it's changing. Now we also have the class like we put in here. So what's the difference between a class and a heading? Sorry, a class and an ID. Now the difference is for IDs are used for just one element in the whole file. So if you okay, so if sorry, I didn't know that my video was hidden, so let me make sure I put that properly. So if you want to use one style for more than one element, you want to target more than one element, the best thing to use is class, not ID. Now technically ID would work, but it's not best practice. All right, so let's try and use a class. So let's give both of them here a class. All right, and let's say class P, something like that. So both of them have the same class now. All right, so let's come up here. Now, how do you target a class? You use dot, so class P. So always use a period to start a class name, and that's what we have here, like so. All right. Okay. So now any style we apply here will apply to both of them. So for example, let's use text decoration, and let's say underline, save, everything gets underlined. Let's say font size. So font size of we could just make that 30 pixels and save, and you see they get bigger because we apply this class to more than one. Now, how about if you apply it to something that's not a p tag? It will also work. So let's copy it and let's add it to the list tags. So like that, let's add them here. Sorry, let's make sure we specify that this is a class, paste it, and then remember that this is our list items. They are not as large as the p tags. So let's save this and notice that the list item also becomes big, but this p tag, which is not targeted, remains where it is. Same thing with this. All right, so that is it, and this is how you target using in file. Now the last way to target or add CSS rather is external CSS. So how does this work? This works by creating a different file and then linking. This works by creating an external file and then linking the file to what you already have. So I'll just copy this so that I can get it back later and then close this off. Now what you need is here to add a link, CSS link like this. So it's a tag. You do link and do rel, make it a style sheet, because you could use this link for not just style sheet. And then whatever you choose to name your CSS file, you put it here. So we'll be calling our own style.css just as it is. So let's close this off, and inside of here, let's create a new file and say style.css like so. All right, and then you remember I copied all the styles there, so let's paste it here. It's just the same thing, nothing is changing. I want to save this to make sure it goes back to normal. So it has gone back to normal, and then let me save this so that you see that it's the same thing. It will apply again. So you save it, it comes back to the same thing. And this is just the difference between styling in file and styling externally. So when you style externally, you're able to make your code more modular. It is less comprehensive, and so this is what we'll focus on doing for the rest of this course. So we'll be adding using this external CSS. Now you can also comment here. So you just need to start with a slash and an asterisk and close with an asterisk and a slash. I could just say, hey, this is second P, and this is class P, stuff like that. Okay, that's just basically what you need to comment. All right, so that's it. The next thing we'll be looking at based on our curriculum here will be CSS Box Model. Now, the CSS Box Model helps define the structure or layout of every HTML element we see on a web page. It consists of 4 things. That is the HTML element itself, the padding, which is the space that surrounds the HTML element, the border, which now houses the padding and the HTML element, and then the margin, which is the space that surrounds the border, and it is also the space that stands between the border and the body element. Let's look at it in practical terms. So let's write some code. We'll be using CodePen to write out the code for this tutorial. What we have here is an image, and you'll notice that it already has some spaces around it. Now we want to remove these because this is the default styles that HTML and CSS gives to us as soon as we put an element on the page. So for us to do that, look at what we'll do. We'll use the asterisk, showing that anything we put on this page should have these styles. So we are removing the margin, so we set the margin to 0. We are removing the padding, so we are setting the padding to 0. We also want to remove the border, if any, set it to 0. So by default, this is a star. You notice that there is no longer any space around the image. So to demonstrate this, let us reduce the image so that we could see the full size of this image. So we'll set the image height to, let's put it at 300 pixel, and set the width to the same 300 pixel. All right, let me get this off your screen. Okay, let it stay down here. That's my face. All right, so we have the image in a way we can see it. Now, what are we talking about? We are saying that this image now, which is a HTML element, has 3 properties that surrounds it, or 3 spaces that surrounds it. One of them is the padding, the other one is the margin, the other one is the border. Now, the space between, the first space we see after the image is the padding, and the next space will be the border, while the space that now covers everything is the margin. For you to easily understand this, we'll start by putting in the border, because the padding and the margin are just empty spaces. So the border stays between both of them. So let's first of all add the border. We'll set it to 10 pixels. That is, this 10 pixels is the width of the border, or the border thickness, and we are putting in a solid color of green. You can see the green border around the image, right? Good. Now we want a space between this image and the border. So that is a padding. So we add a padding, and let's set it to 20 pixels. We are making these numbers big so that we could easily understand it. Now notice that there's a space now between the image and the border. Now we also want a space between the border and the space outside. So we set in a margin, and let's use 20 pixels too. Awesome. Now notice that there is now a space between the border and outside. Now this is what the CSS Box model is all about. It helps us understand how our pages are laid out, how every element on the page is, how much border we give, how much padding we give, how much margin we give. Now because you understand this, it is easier for you to now write clean code. It is easy for you to write easily maintainable code, and you can easily understand how these pages are structured, and of course you save time. We are now looking at combinators, selectors, combinators. This is basically how we can style a combination of tags, maybe selectors or tags and selectors, stuff like that. Let's get right into it. So let's remove this. So I have already put in some like boilerplates, and as we go, I'll just be explaining what they are all about. So the first one is combining multiple selectors. This could also be, maybe let's say we choose to add like a class tag here. Class tag. We could also add say p id. We have second id, first id, so we could just add this to it. So just make sure you properly target it before adding it. So how does this work? We use a comma to separate them. So once you use a comma to separate them, make sure you have your comma. Once you use a comma to separate them, it shows that each of these elements or classes or selectors need to have that styling. So here is it. For example, we could just say something like text decoration, and we say underline. Once you save it, everything on this page takes that styling. Why is this so? Because it is targeted here. Now if we get rid of, let's say we remove the p tag here, or the p tag will still have it. Why? Because there is the class p here. The class p here is the class that applies to all the p tags, if you recall, aside from this particular one, which is inside of the footer here. When you scroll down, we have the p tag here, which is inside of the footer. It doesn't have the class p. That is why it's able to be exempted. Now if we remove the class p, it's going to remain just one p that has it. So you see, it remains just this p, which has the id of second p. Now if we still remove the second p, all p tags now will be free, but the h1 tag up here and the list tag here would all have the decoration of underline. So that is how you do a multiple selector. Now, how about if you want to target all the children or all the members of the same parent? So what are we referring to? Now, I have put in all these things inside of a container. So let me push this to the side. That is what I'm saying. Now I have the two p tags here inside of a section, and I have two other p tags outside of the section. Then I have p tag and ol tag, that is on ordered list tag, inside of the footer. Now, what does parent mean? Parent means the tag that is housing other tags. For example, body is the parent of everything here. Now, inside of here we have the main. The main is the parent of everything inside of the main. Then we have inside of the main, we have the section, we have the p tags, we have the footer, and we have the h1 up here. All these are children to the main tag. Now inside of the section, we have p tags, two of them. These two p tags are children to the section. All right. Now, if we want to target these two p tags, what we need to do is to do what we call a child selector, and usually use this angular bracket here. So if you add say text decoration here underline, it will target the two p tags inside of it. All right. You notice that these two paragraphs are now underlined. Also recall that we have p tags outside. So because these two p tags are not children of this section, they will not be affected. All right. Now, how about say you don't want to use this? Now, if you don't want to use this and you get rid of this angular bracket here and save it, you will still have the same result. This is why people generally don't use the angular bracket when targeting children. You just put in the p tag and you're fine. Now, if we add a comma to this section, comma, then p, and save it, all p tags will be affected. Why? Because it becomes a multiple selector, not a child selector. So make sure that you don't do that mistake and add a comma. So save it, and p tags that are not children are now free. Now let's get rid of this, save it back, it goes back to normal. Now how about adjacent sibling selectors? Adjacent sibling selector means the child immediately after a particular element. So if you put this and save this, you notice that just one p tag gets affected. The ones inside of the section are not affected, but the one immediately after the section, which is this particular one, is affected. That is what we call the adjacent sibling selector. But how about if we want to select every sibling of that particular kind of tag? So if we want to do that, we have to use the general selector here, where you use this symbol. And so let's paste the styling inside text decoration and save it. Then you now notice that the two siblings, that is the two p tags that are outside of this section, are now affected. All right. And that's just it basically. For the footer too, if you want to target the p as a descendant selector, kind of, you just put it there, and that's just it. So it's similar to what I showed you at the child selector one, something like that. And that's how you do a combination of selectors in order to achieve a particular result. Yeah. All right. Pseudo elements, pseudo attributes, and pseudo classes. What's their difference? So let's see how we can style elements using pseudo elements, pseudo attributes, and pseudo classes. Now, pseudo classes are states of a particular element. Say, for example, when you hover over a particular element, that's a state, a link that has been clicked, a link that is on focus, and stuff like that. Pseudo element is, say, like a part of a particular element that you could target. And then pseudo attributes are attributes or styling elements using a particular attribute. We'll see all of this in a moment. So let me take this off. And so we'll begin with pseudo classes. By default, most pseudo classes will not be taking effect until you perform a particular action. So how do we target a pseudo class? Now, the difference between targeting a pseudo class and a pseudo element is in the colon. So let's say we want to target all the p tags and we want to check when we want to perform a particular action or when we hover on top of it. So we just need one colon, and then we type hover and then open and close braces, and we say we want the background to change, background color, we want it to change to whatever you choose. So I'll just take this blue violet, save it. Now you notice that nothing is going on, but as soon as I drag my mouse above each of the p tags, all the pseudo elements, all the p tags takes up the pseudo class of hover. Now we could add more styling. For example, the color, I want the color to change to Alice blue, or it's fine, or Alice blue. Now let me try it again. You see how everything changes, like, so you could add as many styles as you want. Now you could do this for virtually anything on the page. Just take note that it has to be just one column if you are doing it for a pseudo class. Now how about for a pseudo element? So like we said, the class is a state, so which means when it changes from this to that. But a pseudo element is just a particular part of the element. For example, if we want to target the first first letter of a particular p tag, or all p tags better, we want to change it from the normal font size to say font 50. Now save it, make sure it's 50 pixels. Now it's a good time for me to let you know that we have basically three units that we use in sizing. So it could be pixels, which is px, it could be em, and it could be rem. So as time passes by, you get to know more of this, but we'll focus on pixels at this time. All right, so save this. I notice that every first letter now turns to be the biggest, like so. Now we could also try this for first line. So let's do P, and let's do first line. So what do we want the first line to be? I want say font style to be italic. Save it, and then notice that every first line here becomes italicized. Now any way you do it, whether you reduce the size or you stretch it out, it would always take the whole first line and style it like so. All right, now the last one is attribute selectors or pseudo attributes. How do we do this? For this one, you start with the element, and then you open and close angular brackets, sorry, square brackets, and then close open and close curly braces. Now inside of the square bracket, you target the particular element. Sorry, you target the particular attribute. So what are attributes? Attributes are those things we add as, you know, additional stylings. No, we'll not call it stylings. It's additional characteristics of a particular element. So for example, the ID is an attribute. The class here is an attribute. All right. The same thing for the first P here, which is ID and class. Now this can be basically anything, like I told you. For example, if you have, say for example, an input box here, the type inside of it here is an attribute. All right, so you bear that in mind. So let's save this and then come back here. Now we want to target all p tags that have an ID equal to first p. All right, so like I told you initially, it is not proper for more than one element to have the same ID. All right, so bearing this in mind, what we are doing here just for demonstration purpose, and so that you have that at the back of your mind when you're building something proper. All right, so for first P here, we want to change and say text decoration and put it at underline. Now save it, and you notice that all those p tags that have that particular ID is now having the underline, and of course other styles apply to it. So you can do the same thing for even the input and every part of the website. All right, so that is pseudo classes, pseudo elements, and pseudo attributes selectors. Yeah, I am delighted to welcome you to the last part of this video or this tutorial, which is responsiveness. Now, of all things you really want to make sure on your website, responsiveness is one of them. It is very, very important, and the reason why is that many people today would view your website on their phones. So if you are building only for people that use computer, you are going to lose, say, around 70% of users. And once you lose that amount, you see it's not useful anymore. So let's talk about responsiveness. We're going to be looking at Viewport. We're going to be looking at media queries. We're going to be looking at Grid and then Flexbox. So let's jump right into it. Now, sometimes at the beginning of HTML, we talked about viewport, but of course we didn't go into detail, and even now there's no point going into detail. But just know that the viewport defines the size of our screen. So it tries to find out what's the size of your screen and try to adapt to it. So basically, you just enter this line of code, which is with the attribute meta or the tag meta, and then put in the attribute name, the content, and that's all. Once you have that set up, and we are ready to go. So we'll first of all look at responsiveness when it comes to images. So this is not the first time we're putting this image on our screen, and something you'll always notice is that it will float outside our screen. So how do we make sure that our image is responsive? So here under the image comments, let me reduce this properly so that you can see everything going on. So as at this moment, if you scroll horizontally, it's going to move away. But let's just target the image tag, and inside of it, let's declare width. Now, instead of declaring a fixed width, say for example 500 pixel, and saving it, this would not work on all screen. We want something that work on all screen. Notice that up to now it's still moving outside of the viewport, and then if I open up, it doesn't take up the whole width of the viewport. We want it to be in such a way that whatever the screen we put it in, it should be able to take up the full width. So for us to do that, we want to set it to 100%. As soon as you send it to 100%, you notice that it now stays within and does not float horizontally anymore. All right. So here is it. And then for the height, we want to set the height. Now this is automatically set, but if you want to be very sure, you set the height to auto, which means that it floats automatically, and that means your image is not going to be skewed or overly stretched. So just keep it at 100% width, so it's always going to take up the width of its container, as you can see. And as you reduce it, it take up the width, no matter how small, how big it is. And that's how you create responsive images on your site. Now, how about if you want, say, content of your page to change based on the size of the size of your screen? So let's say for mobile devices, for desktop devices, for tablets and stuff like that. So where you do that is using what we call media queries. And what are media queries? These are basically a way to write, say, commands to make adjustments based on your screen. That's just it. So it starts with at media only, like that, screen, and then we'll now specify the size of the screen and what we want to happen at that size of the screen. So here we want to set, say, max width. We want to set this max width to 500 pixels. So what this means is from the smallest screen up to when a screen is 500 pixels wide, we want the following code inside of here to run. So we just want to change the background color, and let's change it to red. Oh, sorry. Let's target this properly. So when we go back here, we have our main. So we are targeting the main. We want the whole body to take it up. So main, and then background color, set it to, or whatever, set it and save it. Now notice that as soon as we save it, it changes because this is within the 500 pixels width. And now when we stretch it out, it stops. Why? Because we've exceeded 500. So let's also define something for when it exceeds 500. So let's say, now remember, you can define both the max and minimum width as the case may be. So we can change this and put in something else, purple, and save it. And you see now, as soon as we get to 700, it changes color. Now you also notice that when we bring it back to 500, it is also showing us the same purple. This is because we have set it to go from smallest to 700. So for us to do that, we want to make sure that we also set we want to make sure we don't set max width at this point. So what we want to set would be minimum width. So the minimum width will have to start from where this one stops. So we can set it to 501 since this one is at 500. So once we set it, we save it. Now you see the one below 500 and up to 500 will go like this, and then we can now set anything above 500 like so. You see, it goes up that way, up above, like that. So we can do this, and we can set multiple widths. I mean, you can set a minimum width and a maximum width inside of the media queries. So that's how you set up media queries targeting different parts of your screen size, like that. Okay, we're making progress with grid on responsiveness. So let me make sure everything is working fine. Okay, great. So we want to be able to arrange this site in such a way that when we come to it, everything is in sections. So currently everything just runs down from beginning down to the end, which is not what it looks like in a proper site like this one. We can see that things are in portions. As we go down, we see everything in portions, not always down there straight. Where's this? And we see the pricing and all. So we want to have similar something going on for us here. So what do? We use what we call grid. And so what we need to do is come and check out how our site or our code is arranged. So here we have the main, and then we have the header inside, the aside, the section, and then the footer. So for us to do this, we'll have to target each of the headers and give each of the tags some stylings before we start arranging it. So what do? Let's come down here and then let's target it. So we're targeting the header, and we are saying that this header will have to take up a grid area of header, like so. And we could also add a background color just to make sure we are differentiating everything we are doing properly. Then we check out another one, which is aside, and we are doing basically the same thing, grid area, and we are saying aside, and we are giving it a background color of, we can pick any background color here, just make it different so that you understand what we are doing properly. So section, grid area, like that, and say give it section. So basically, grid area is referring to the portion that we want to target. And then let's also give it a background color. Let's pick background color. This is fine. And then the last one will be the footer. Last one will be the footer. And then give it a grid area, footer as usual. And then background color, and pick something nice. Pink. So we'll save that, and we'll notice that all the parts of our website is already sectioned with different colors, which is what we want. Now let's come down a bit and let's target the main, which is the tag that closes everything for us. So let's target the main, and inside of here we decide our display. So we want to display it in a grid format. So we do display grid like this, and then we now get the templates of how we want the page to look like. So this is how we want our page to look like. We'll use grid template areas. So grid template areas. What we'll do in this case is to set up exactly how we intend our each portion of our site to look like. All right. So in the first one, we want the header to take up say 100% of the area. So we can put it say 5 times here. All right, so that's 5 times. So what it means is the header is taking 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%. Now if we get rid of this, it means the header takes 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. I think the 20% part is fine. Then in the second row, we now want aside to take just 20%. Then we want section to take the rest. So section, like so. And then down here, we want the footer to take up everything. So footer, if I spell that correctly. So footer, I just copy and paste this, by the way. Footer. I think this is remaining 1. footer, so section. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this will make up 5. So it's just mathematics. As soon as you get all of this, you save it. Then notice how our page automatically changes. Now, let me make this full width so that you understand. So remember that we said our header takes up the full width, and so this is our header. Then we said our site takes up only 20%, while the section takes up the remaining 80%, and this is it happening here. Then we still have our footer taking up 100% of what we have here. You will also notice that at the edge of our website, we have something like a margin there. Yes, this is because HTML generally come with this default HTML styling with a margin. So let's get rid of it. So we use an asterisk and open and close curly braces like this, and set the margin to 0 and save it. So as soon as you save it, everything loses its margin that comes defaultly. So what it means is the H1 that had a margin will be removed. So you now set your margin if you really want a margin and stuff like that. If you want to remove it, it's all fine. All right. Okay. So that is it. But something we do not want is to have our content skewed like this in smaller windows. You get? So this is where media query comes in. We want it to be that at different sizes, especially in a font size like this, we want to stack everything back on each other, something like that. So for us to do this, we now want to copy this and go to our media query. So I'll get rid of these two. So we'll focus on just this one, and then we'll paste this inside of here. So inside of here, we want to make sure that all of them takes up the full width. So we'll just make a side to take up this, and this. And then for here, we'll put it here. So section takes up everything. And so once it is less than 500, it would automatically take up every space here. Okay, I think we need to move this also into a media query so that it doesn't overpower this one. So let's just copy and paste this, and then let's set a minimum of 501 here, and then we'll copy what's inside of here into here and paste it. Now as soon as we save it, it now takes up everything here. So as long as the width is less than 500 as we specified here, it would continue to take up the full width. But once it gets beyond 500 like so, it now sections, as we can see on the screen. So this is how we can handle responsiveness in CSS in our website. And that's the basics of responsiveness. You can play around with this and see where it takes you. You also get to do projects. Just in case you do not have any project ideas, join our Discord group, where I'll be dropping CSS project ideas, and we will review your code and see how it goes from there. So thank you very much. And if you're looking for how to seek help, I'll be adding another video of how to seek help when you face bugs. So this is it for CSS, and this is all you really need to know. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next videos. How do you solve problems when you hit problems? So what we developers usually do is to go to the internet. So say for example, something is not working the way you planned it to be. So say for example, when we try to make an image, so let me get rid of everything here. Say for example, when we try to make an image, so be fast with this. Okay, I'll put in the source, and then inside of here I'll put in this. Okay, and save it. So now that we saved it, let's say I'm wondering why this is taking up the whole page. Let's say for any reason I forgot. So I could just go to the internet and ask and say my image takes all the space on my website. How can I make it look nicer. So I will just hit enter, and it's going to search out for us different answers that people have dropped, or it could be articles, it could be videos that people have written, stuff like that. So I'm looking through this, how to optimize images. That's not what we are looking for. Is that no? So what we are really looking for is how to make our image just take up a little portion of our website, not all the whole portion. So this is not giving us exactly what we want. So we need to change what we ask. So we'll clear this off, and we could say make image take less space. So this is still taking us to different things, but this is changing. So how do I reduce the file size of an image? We're not really looking at reducing the file size. So let's change this yet to something else. So so we could say something like make image smaller. So we want to make it smaller in width and size, in width and height, something like that. So something like resize image resize. So something we did not add is, say, HTML code, something like that. HTML code. You see how to resize image in HTML. So we've gotten something that really makes sense. We could also see W3 School image HTML image width attribute, how to make image smaller. You see, so the keywords we use when searching for problems really matter. So we've been using different keywords that was leading us to different things. We're not being specific. You see, this time around we added HTML code, and everything we're now talking about is HTML. So any of this would work. So for example, when you open this and you check what it has, you notice that already from here it's telling us using height and width, and it looks like our problem here is the height and width. Is that not so? If you open HTML img width attribute, W3 School, stuff like that, now we notice that okay, we have alt, we have width, we have height, and when we try this out, we notice that this is staying within the page as we want. So we can come back here and now specify our own and say, okay, we want width of say 500, and we want height of say 300, stuff like that. Save it and come back to our page. Notice that it now takes up the part of the page that we really want. So this is how to seek help. But beyond this, I am also creating like a community where you can get help. It's going to be a Discord community, and I'll add the link down in the description. I want beginners to be able to interact with each other and get to learn from each other. Then we'll also have people who have stayed a while in the engineering field experience. I'll also be in that group whereby you can ask questions. I will try to give you answers to those questions. It would be really nice if you can join, so that you can get specific answers to your question. If it is possible to jump on a call with some people, we're going to do that. And also, thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share this video to as many people as possible, especially beginners. I look forward to seeing you on Discord. Something else we'll be doing on Discord is I'll be sharing projects. So the projects that will really help you to solidify what you are doing will be shared there on Discord. So if you want to have access to those projects, please join the Discord channel, and do not forget to again like, share, subscribe. Thank you. I'll see you in my next tutorial.